And if they go king f8, you play 96. For example, a student of mine won a game a few days ago like this. He was like very proud of himself and said, Maya, look what happened. Look how I won the game. Hey guys, what's up? Once again, we're going to work something against e4, e5. I need to complete that series of Italian opening. And I just need to show you something very surprising. I know that you all used to tell me, like, Maya, always let us know if we can use that in tournament games, blitz, just faster time controls or so. So the following line is called Perreux variation, and it was regularly exploited by two great creative chess minds of that time, like 100 years ago, Paul Morphy and Adolf Anderssen. So I'm gonna call it Morphy or Anderssen's Gambit. In the past week, I've been using this system, and I can tell you that it works even against high-rated GMs 2600 FIDE. Before that, and before we officially begin with exploiting the variations there, I just want to tell you this is line for to be used in one, maximum two tournament games. It's great for blitz, it's great for faster time controls, and it's full of tricks. Let's immediately go there. How does it appear? After e4, e5, you know that I like bishop c4, and I'm still writing a Chessable book about the bishop's opening and Rus of Gambit. So as soon as I finish a book, you're gonna be informed about it. That's why we go from the bishop c4. After knight f6, we have two approaches, like bulletproof approach with d3. You have it somewhere on the channel, and this d4, the one that we examined in the past. So after e takes d4, knight f3, you know that we've been working on knight e4, and it just goes into the Urus of Gambit. Find it somewhere on the channel. But they can play, and majority of my opponents against me do the knight c6. Here, you have three moves. You know that I gave you short castle 94 and Neckmanson's Gambit. You once again can find the video on the channel. You know that after 94 have a classic Scotch Gambit approach with the rook e1, and after d5, bishop d5, knight c3, and so on and so on. But I opted here for Morphy's Gambit with knight g5. This is another tricky, pretty short, and easy to learn line. But believe me, if I play this, I played against Grandmaster Bogdan Dak, his 26, 20, 30 FIDE. I played against Alexei Suetin, famous Grandmaster and coach. I played against another GM, can't remember his name. And I played against a couple of IMs and FMs and almost won all my games. So what I'm actually trying to say, if you learn the following tricks that I'm about to present to you, you have a great chance of winning a big number of blitz games in the future. Share your games with me. You know that we also have the Butcher Team group on Lead Chess. So go there, share your games and links of the games with me, and there we go. You can share the analysis games and enjoy playing games against the members of the group. Anyways, after knight g5, they have two moves. They only can play d5 or knight e5. Those are two main approaches. By the way, you threaten to take on f7 by knight and to do the fork, and also to take, in some variations, by bishop. They have to defend it. Statistically, 60% of the games, black goes with d5, which is the main line, and 40, maybe even 45% of the games, they just go with 95, maybe 55-45 or 60-40. From my experience, most of the guys do 95. And when you play bishop e3, it's nice because they defend f7 with tempo and chase this bishop away with tempo as well. You play bishop e3, and now they can play h6, bishop b4, or d5. Bishop b4 is weak. because you play c3, you take by pawn, getting an important tempo against the bishop on b4, and play f4 with another tempo. If knight c6, you just play e5. Reminds me on fantastic Italian opening, and they're just completely lost. If knight eg4, you play bishop f7. If king e7, you play e5, knight f2, and e takes f6. Wins the game because it comes with check. And if they go king f8, you play knight e6. For example, a student of mine won a game a few days ago like this. He was like very proud of himself and said, Maya, look what happened. Look how I won the game. So that's a nice one. Apart from bishop b4, they can also play d5. d5 was played against me by Alexei Suyetin and one more guy. Sorry, Alexei Kuzmin, my fault. Suyetin is way older. And here, in one game, I played queen d4, bishop d6, he takes d5, castles, and knight c3. This is one of those positions and variations why I told you can use it in maybe one tournament game more as a surprise and not to use it again. Because if you play it for the second time, probably your opponent is going to go into this position. To be honest, you're up a pawn, but they have like a pretty good active counter chances. Although, according to the engines, with a perfect play, they're just a tiny bit better. So, if you're willing to take a risk, let it be. Another thing is, after d5, you just go with f4. And after f4, they play bishop g4, you play queen d4. This is how my game went. And after knight e6, you have to play some queen e3. I played a little bit suspicious queen e4, managed to win the game, but it was roughly equal. And finally, if they play h6, this is the most interesting one, and almost everyone goes with it. Even Paul Morphy and Adolf Anderssen had their games after h6. So you play f4. You say, man, move it, because if you move the knight, you're going to take on f7. They take on g5, you take on e4. They have to take on e4. One guy played knight h5 against me, threatening very cheap knight g3. But then you just go castle, you threaten here, and obviously they have lots of problems with development. That's why everybody plays knight e4, and I have a specialty here, bishop d5. Why is that so special? Because they were threatening to play d5 themselves, in which case they would open up the dark square bishop if we take en passant with he takes d6, or they would just close the bishop on b3. So that's why we play bishop d5. It's a special move, and it's so important to be done. A couple of games, they went for f5. That's a pretty suspicious move because you go with short castle, and somehow this king looks under a huge possibility to find itself under the attack afterwards. So after like bishop c5, they want to go with d3 check and knight g3 mate. Wanted to say smarter mate, but it's not. Queen d3, and now they have g4 and d6. For example, take a look at this one. When I play d6, knight e2, removing the knight, takes by bishop. The guy is up, how many pawns? 3 pawns up. But you don't care, you give check, you take first pawn, you take second pawn, and you take the bishop. All of a sudden, you're better. You're only down a pawn, but just like I told you, this king feels very weak. In case of g4, you just go rook f5, queen h4, and I found one game where the guy captured the knight, came here, and just do this. Actually, he did this tic-tac maneuver and eventually won the game. This is why after this, they should not play f5, but they should go with knight c5. But before that, let me just show you what happens if bishop b4. Bishop b4, once again, you play c3, and when they take, you take. For example, they do not have time to take by bishop because you take, and you have a very nice check, and you go with check, and you go with check, and you go with en passant, and you take on d6, and you're down 2 pawns, but you have numerous of threats. First of all, you threaten queen g7. immediately. Then you have rook f7. Then you want to include one more piece into the action. Well, they have lots of problems with, once again, weak king. They can also take by knight, but in that case, bishop f7 is a specialty, king g8. Now you take, and they do not have time to take because they're going to get mated. So they go d5, that's the only move, and you play bishop g5. On a couple of correspondence games like this, where after queen g5, queen d5, queen e4, queen b4, after all the mess, white just looks better. Why? Simply because of the fact that our king is safer than theirs. It's a nice position, and I kind of enjoy white's game. This is why after bishop d5, they have to play knight c5. For all of you who think that I'm showing you this a little bit faster, you can pause the video, guys, and you have a slow mode, so this is how you're going to be able to repeat and remember the analysis better. After knight c5, you just go castles, you threaten on f7, they gotta defend it, but knight on e6, you play queen f3, once again threatening mate. They have to play queen e7, and here I have two moves. Against Deac from Romania, I played knight d2, which according to the engines is the best move. But I remember that when I was younger, I was preparing a couple of times, and you know, just for some rapid tournaments, and to surprise my opponents, knight a3. Looks a pretty weird move, but actually it has its own threats. I'm threatening knight b5. I won one game in my city against candidate master. The guy played c6, like, looks like, where are you going, man? You won't be able to play knight b5. Well, it's not gonna work this time. Knight c4, and I won my game. Because when they take, I take. And it's not that I only give check and win the rook. I am also threatening knight g6 to win another piece. That's why they have to play a6. Turns out that it's the only move. You play knight c4. They can't push b5. They can't push c6. They can't play d6. They only have to play rook b8. It's pretty difficult. And you have to admit that it's worth of considering to try this out with the white pieces. You're down a pawn. You just enjoy your chess. Then you just play some position that probably has never occurred in a game of your opponent. So you play h3 to stop g4. I'll show you why it's so important, because Grandmaster Deac played it against me without any hesitation. So b5, knight a5. Now, he can't play bishop b7 at any point. And they can't play d6 because of knight c6. And if they go c6, let me show you one of my nice games. It was an FM from, I believe, Malaysia on Lee Chess a few days ago. I played bishop e6. The guy played d takes. I played bishop g5. Of course, that he had to play something like queen c7, in which case probably I would go with, knight c6. Sorry, knight c6 to play like this, because they cannot play even this move, because I believe I have bishop d8. But doesn't matter. The guy captured the bishop. I came up with check and mated him with the knight c6. It was a 3-minute game, but carelessly continued to play and got into troubles. After queen e6, bishop g5, you want to play rook ad1, you want to play rook f2, and maybe doubling these rooks. You want to play queen g3 and supporting the pawn afterwards on e5. Well, they can't do anything. They have lots of problems. Queen g3 is, by the way, aimed against bishop e7, because you can take on g7. Very nice and pretty good position for white. So knight a3 is one option. According to the engine, this is the best. You want to go with knight e4. And now that the GM against me used g4 strongest move. If c6, knight e4. You're winning in absolutely the same fashion, and I showed you previously. You take on h6 and you on h8, and you even threaten knight g6. If g4 now, you give check first. They cannot take because you first include check. And after this, you take on g4, they take, you play knight f7, and once again, you have the same type of trick with the knight g6 afterwards. And in the worst case scenario, you're just going to save the knight. In case of f6, you just play knight e4, and they have lots of problems with the king and pawn on h6. Sorry, f6. And in case of knight f4, you just play knight e4, which is a nice piece sack. And when they go like this, you play knight g5. I'll show you another game. Queen e5, threatened this one. Pawn on h2 and maybe knight e3. Check, king d8, and I played this very calm and I would say cold-blooded reaction with h3. We're down a piece, but if we have a beautifully placed knight, we gotta move the queen somewhere and threaten knight f7 afterwards. After bishop d6, unfortunately, you can't get more than knight f3, queen e6, knight g5 with perpetual attack on the queen and its draw. It's a fairly nice line. That Romanian GM against me played g4. The game was played on chess.com, like I believe a week ago. I captured. He went with the best move according to the engines, queen h4. I captured, played knight f3. Don't forget, at the moment I'm down a pawn. Played g4, which I analyzed on the engine. It's like, let me just get rid of the pressure on e5 and just kick that knight away. And in some positions, you'll see what I did. Rook h8, bishop g5. Here I stopped my analysis. And I was pretty sure that bishop belongs there because they cannot take it. We're just going to take it and the f7 is hanging. But after rook b8, you take on e6 and play knight e4. Now you'll see the point of my bishop being there, because I can easily stop any bishop e7, because in that case my knight is going to be a little bit better than his bishop. Now my king goes on g2 and g3. That's what I did in the game. Then played h4, and I even was slightly better, but eventually we drew that blitz game. Game was pretty good, to be honest. Even though it was a blitz game, it was a pretty good from theoretical point of view. And finally, we've seen that knight e5 move. What happens if they play d5? If they play d5, then you just have to play e takes d5. I know they have a bunch of moves. For example, I won like probably 5 games when they take on d5. After castles, they're immediately lost. You threaten knight f7, you threaten queen f3, you threaten rook e1. Go home, man. What are you looking for here? So they have to go for something else. Knight e5, you play queen e2, threatening this knight and the king. They gotta play queen e7 and you do castle. I had a game like this. That was, I believe, another GM. Forgot, I believe from Poland or whatever. The guy played h6, knight f3. In case of knight c4, queen c4, take a look at this. I'm threatening rook e1. Played queen c1. Cannot play bishop e7 because the queen would be hanging. Played king d8 and I played queen to d3. Why? I don't want to trade the queens off. I want to give him pretty difficult time afterwards, since his king is in the middle of nowhere. And we won't give him like such a nice and easy time afterwards in endgame by exchanging queens. And instead of this, I've seen fried liver approach with the knight a5. By the way, lots of guys ask me, is this fried liver? No, it's not, because b4 it takes d4 is included. And when you play queen d4, knight c4, queen c4, they play queen d5. Here, after giving check, I found a guy, I'm not sure, I believe he's from Venezuela, Paraguay, or from Philippines, actually from the Philippines. He played like a whole bunch of games with this queen e2 move. His results weren't that good, but I guess he didn't learn his variation properly. For example, if bishop e6, you just take on e6, and for the rest of the game, you have a very simple type of advantage. You got, well, they have like 2 pawn islands. He's got 3 pawn islands and permanently weak pawn on e6. In case of queen e6, you just go for the same, to the short castle, play rook e1, and find a way to go after the weak pawn on e6. You know the old rule. One weakness is holdable. It's defendable, but create second weakness, and principle of 2 weaknesses, you should be much better. And finally, if they go for a queen e7 check, which is the best move in this position, we just have to go king f1. This is another line why we shouldn't go for this game in tournament games against higher rated opponents, because you risk that somebody is going to know this line. They go knight e5, take the bishop, and play queen c5. Then you take on c5, play knight c3, and they play bishop f5. After you play bishop f4, they get the pawn back. You get this pawn. They go castles, rook c1, bishop d3, king g1, rook fc8, and d6. This was the game between two guys who at that time were almost an IM strength, but nowadays they are 2600 GMs, Tomchak and Varakomsky. What's the point? We're up a pawn, but they have the bishop pair. We have a possibly weak king and maybe problems with development. He also needs to take some time to get a pawn back. And the game was h6, knight f3, knight e8, rook d1, knight c7, and they made a draw at this point. A relatively nice line to go with and to risk. So if you ask me, yeah, definitely you should use it in faster time controls. Is it for rapid? Yes. Is it for blitz? Absolutely. For bullet, fantastic. Can you use it in tournament games? Maybe in one, as soon as somebody publishes your game, then forget to play that. But if nobody publish your game, in that case, you can even play it for the second time and take like kind of calculated risk. Hope that you enjoyed in this Morphy's Adolf Anderssen's Gambit, shortly called Perreux variation. And by the way, keep in mind, in one of the next lectures, I'm certainly going to show you like E5, which is one of the most and mainstream ideas here by White. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye-bye.